Good morning. I'm Pastor Rick. I want to welcome you to our series, Work Matters with Pastor Will. We're going to be looking at the important topic of the relationship between faith and economics, and we've asked David Householder to lead us in this important conversation. He gave a lecture on faith and economics here at Emmanuel several months ago. It was near April 15th. It was tax day. And so we thought we'd do this again now on tax day, which is July 15th this month, so that we'd find out about this relationship. And David Householder is an author, he's a pastor, he's a theologian, and he will lead us into this relationship because first, he wants to frame the conversation around faith and economics on our relationship with God. And once we realize this relationship between debt and forgiveness, it'll help us in other areas of our personal finance and our national finance. And that'll be the focus particularly of the second session, session 8. Oh my goodness, he covers so many economic topics: national debt, Federal Reserve. He'll talk about Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, World War I, the IRS, you name it, national debt. We won't have time to deal with all those topics. Go to the original lecture on Emmanuel Academies. But we do want to talk about, again, our relationship with God, forgiveness and debt, and the encounter with God can help reframe our relationship between faith and economics, both our personal relationship and our national approach to debt. We now want to ask Pastor Will to lead us into this very important conversation. Pastor Will?
Thanks, Pastor Rick. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Work Matters with me, Pastor Will. I'm so excited that you're here joining us for the second part in a two-part discussion about debt and forgiveness with David Householder, the senior pastor of the Well Church. And in this episode, David talks about what debt can do to our lives and the correlation between debt and obligation to our neighbor, and how the church can play a role in transforming that relationship of debt into a relationship of forgiveness and of hope. So please check this clip out. It's a short one. I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you on the other side for a longer discussion.
Government debt. Here's my information. I want to look at our church and where I'm from and all that kind of stuff. But I want to look at government debt in particular. And I'm not here. I don't really have a point of view. I don't have an agenda. I'm just trying to sort of question our assumptions about these things, so we can start thinking more clearly about these issues. I don't have a solution, but I want us to just explore: what is debt? What is tax? How does that affect what we do in church on Sunday? What we say about forgiveness, what we say about grace, how we use the means of grace. What does it say about these things? So, debt. This is a great quote. Let's read this quote here at the top of the page together. 1, 2, 3. If you owe the bank $100,000, the bank owns you. If you owe the bank $100 million, the bank owns you. No, you owe the bank. Sorry, no. Yeah, never mind. You own the bank. You own the bank. That's supposed to say you own the bank.
Too big to fail.
That's right. You're too big to fail. You own the bank at that point. And so it's really confusing as to what government debt is. Since there's really no such thing as the government, who is the debtor? Is it the next generation that has to pay it back? It's really generational debt because we have no means to pay it back now. In fact, we have no means to pay it back even then. I'm going to show you the numbers that are what we call unfunded liabilities, which are staggering. So in other words, the government doesn't really have a debt. They've farmed a lot of it out to our client states, for which we attribute, and they've farmed it out to the next generation. They'll have to collect it in taxes, cut spending, or blow up the whole system and devalue the currency, because there's really no other way to balance it. Jesus put debts in the middle of the Lord's Prayer. And the original Lord's Prayer doesn't say trespasses, it says debts. So the Presbyterians are right. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And this isn't just spiritual. Jesus, a lot of his stuff was about debts. His parables were about people owing money and working these things out. Hey, you just got forgiven by your boss. Why are you messing with your employee? And it's not necessarily just spiritual. This is an economic statement. To Jesus, debt was a bastardized promise or an obligation. We need to live in relationship with one another. And no, you don't lend to your crazy alcoholic uncle, and no, you don't lend to an 18-year-old $80,000 who has no job. Because that's not relational responsibility. You just don't do that. None of you would do that with your money. So we look at this way. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Old Testament, Neshi, debt. From the Shah Tabor, that's pretty basic. Greek, Ophelo, which is why Ophelia is not a great name for a girl. Ophelos, prophet, accrue. The etymology from English is Latin. Debitum. Anti-having. You're the opposite of having things. You're actually underwater. And it's something to definitely avoid. Lutheran thinking and grace. Jesus paying our debts on the cross. This is key for Lutherans. We respond. Good works are done out of grateful response to what Jesus has done for us. Not to please God. Not to appease God. Not because he's angry. Luther came to that not by studying the Bible. Luther came to that by an encounter, a collision with God. And he met a God who needed nothing and loved him and loved Martin. And that this is the ultimate reality, is God needs nothing. This is the ground of creation. This is the fountain of life. This is what the gospel is about, getting that across. Not just, you're really bad, you're in debt, and Jesus paid your debt. That's just transactional. Who thinks an encounter with a living God is more profoundly effective of how you feel about yourself than just a transaction that you click on? A lot of evangelism stuff is just, you did these bad things, Jesus died on the cross for you. It's like your software thing. Click on here, accept or not. And if you accept it, then you're going to heaven. And if you don't accept it, then you're in trouble. But there's no encounter with God there. There's no means of grace. You don't experience grace. It's just a transaction. Luther was not transactional. He was collisional. And the means of grace are collisional. We expect Jesus to show up in the bread and the cup. We expect Jesus to show up in baptism. We expect Jesus to show up when the word is read. And when the gospel is preached. And when the gospel is preached rightly, as Walther would say, people always leave with a sense of that being more important than any of this other debt stuff. They emotionally leave feeling that God is chesed. He's this incredible love. And when we encounter him, we know that. We know it in our knower. We don't have to learn it.
Welcome back. What did you think? You know, when we have an encounter with God, as Pastor David said, it's not a transaction. It's a collision. It's a moment where we are in God's presence, and we know as Christians, as Lutherans, that in a sense the church is God's love generator through the means of grace, through God's word and the sacraments, baptism and Holy Communion. We have the ability to transform this idea of owing things, owing a debt to the world, into an idea that God has everything, and God gives to us freely. And so because God gives to us freely, we are compelled to give to others. And that's what really can transform relationships between family members and neighbors and people in our community. Debt has a big impact. Fiscal debt has a big impact on families and on societies, on our government. Look what's been going on with the spending because of the pandemic that has been going on. And so who's going to pay for that? It's a big deal. It is something that everyone is touched by and everyone suffers from. But know that there is a place where you can go to receive God's grace and know that you don't owe a thing to anyone, because with God and because of God, you are free. And so thank you for watching this episode of Work Matters with me, Pastor Will. Hey, let's continue this conversation about debt and forgiveness. Let's open it up to the greater community, how we deal with the debt. I know a lot of churches are now paying off the medical debts of people, and I think that is a great thing. What are other ways that churches can give hope to the people, not just through worship, but through outreach? Of course, worship can be an outreach as well. Check us out on Facebook, Naples Emmanuel, or you can type in Emmanuel Community Park. Send us an email. We'd love to have a conversation with you. Take care. Thanks for watching. God bless.